almost ran out of breath saying the names of these books. This is what Brendan Urie is doing now that he's quit Panic. Titling the Twitter books.
If you haven't been bookmarked, retweeted, and blogged, you might as well not have existed.
Merry meet, my fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads, a place where we talk about books and other bookish things. Today, I want to talk about the tech world and why it seems to attract mustachio-twirling cartoon villains. Nowhere is the normal person's vitriol and praise heaped more than onto the white men who keep their fortresses in Silicon Valley. And there are reasons for that. The entire area is like the Bermuda Triangle of tech. I have zero shame in admitting that when it comes to journalism pieces seeking to out big names in big tech, I am like a moth to the flame. This is my schadenfreude. I just want to make it clear, I have zero empathy for billionaires who parade around as cartoon villains, and let's be honest, most of them do. But in the tech world, they are particularly cartoonish. From wackadoodle Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos disaster, to Elon free speech Musk, and the absolute mess that was the Twitter acquisition. Welcome to my popcorn entertainment. I just wish so many smart and mostly innocent people didn't suffer when these tech bro types decide to exert authority and destroy something that could have been good. In the year of the dragon, 2024, we were graced with not one, but two books covering the Musk Twitter acquisition. The cherry on top is that they were published within a week of each other. So of course, being the book goblin that I am, I immediately got the audiobooks for both. The first, Extremely Hardcore, Inside Elon Musk's Twitter by Zoe Schiffer, was published on February 13th, followed by Battle for the Bird, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, and the $44 billion fight for Twitter's soul, published on February 20th. I don't plan on this being a deep dive review, as most of the information is known or readily available with the click of a Google search. I do, however, want to touch on some key aspects that I learned from reading these books, how they were presented, and why they helped me solidify my feelings around Elon and what he means to one of the most powerful industries in the world. Even though both books technically cover the Twitter acquisition, both approach it in different ways, primarily the point of views and how the information is presented. One follows the story through the writings and tweets of the employees that were affected, while the other is a linear timeline following testimonials of executives, the media, and behind the scenes information. I wouldn't say that either are particularly biased for the good or bad of the situation. At least I didn't feel that while reading them. However, they don't hold back on how the people surrounding this incident feel about it, which I suppose is the point. At the end of the day, though, it seems that both authors' information came to one solid conclusion. Elon Musk is the cartoon villain of the tech world. Zoe Schiffer takes an interesting path in telling the story of Twitter in Extremely Hardcore. It feels like she wanted the story to focus on how employees of Twitter during the acquisition were affected by it from their point of view. I thought this was potentially a great way to show how the actions taken negatively affected a whole host of different people. Unfortunately, the information isn't organized, and the narrative, if you can call it that, reveals as much. There doesn't appear to be a clear through line, so the first person accounts, emails, and tweets seem to be suspended in mid-air with nothing to ground them. This actually makes it hard to extend sympathy beyond a surface level, that sucks.
That's rough, buddy.
And it does suck that Elon essentially destroyed so many lives, and yet their stories don't seem to be told well here. This mainly has to do with the first piece of information that was actually new to me. The biggest setback this book faces is the lawsuits going on between Twitter 2.0 and the disgruntled employees. It's hard to spill the tea when the kettle is tied up in the Supreme Court of the United States. This kind of creates a credibility problem for the book, since it has anecdotes from anti-Muskers who can't give all the information because it's all tied up in legal proceedings. And honestly, that's fair. I wouldn't want to risk my livelihood for someone else's expose novel, and I doubt Schiffer or any journalist would be willing to match what is owed to these people by Elon. Had Schiffer been able to use all the information her sources are likely to have, the story would have been more solid. As it is, I can see how this might be interpreted as a feeble attempt to discredit the world's richest man. If you thought that any of the employees that are actually happy about Elon taking over and are still working for him were interviewed for this book, then you would be mistaken. Schiffer didn't necessarily need those takes to improve the book, but when what you have is already so feeble, you need to look at other ways to approach telling the story. The whole point is to show the negative of Elon, the acquisition, and Twitter by using the employees who are willing to speak, and those are going to be the ones who were laid off, fired, and had their lives turned upside down, all in the name of a man-child purchasing an overpriced used toy. Because Twitter was in fact an overpriced used toy. I'll explain more on why that is in a bit. Wagner's book, Battle for the Bird, takes a different yet equally interesting approach in explaining the details of the acquisition, namely that it is told in a more narrative fashion. It sticks strictly with the timeline of events, starting way before Elon was even interested in Twitter, versus anecdotal evidence. Don't misunderstand. Wagner does use personal stories from employees. It's just not the only thing he uses to tell the story. He even manages to include some information about executives who still like Elon, which was lacking in Schiffer's book. Battle for the Bird gives you a closer look at the state of Twitter prior to Elon even showing an interest, why he showed an interest in the first place, and how there was really no stopping him. Wagner does a far better job of representing every step that was taken, not just by Elon, but by various Twitter executives that led to the state of things as they are now. Twitter's first CEO, Jack Dorsey, used to be known as very bad at his job. He was fired and then rehired when the Twitter board of directors couldn't find anyone in the whole wide world that could do the job Dorsey couldn't. After coming back to Twitter, Dorsey became known as being very hands-off. This caused a creative bottleneck, which led to product stagnation at Twitter. This right here was Twitter 1.0's biggest downfall. Then Twitter 2.0 with Elon course-corrected way too far in the other direction. Too many changes and switching from a laid-back managerial style to a micromanager one. A few years into Dorsey's second term as CEO, he begins showing his true feelings for Elon.
Notice me, senpai, notice me.
This ended up making him a huge hypocrite in the eyes of his diverse and liberal employees. Dorsey effectively pulled the rug out from under all of them. Can you imagine that feeling of utter betrayal? You think you are in this family, this place that you dedicate hours of your day to, years of your life, only for it to ultimately be a lie. They really don't care about you as a person. This is why you should never trust corporations, no matter what their outward appearance might be, because the fools who run it are likely just running a grift to make a profit. I do feel for these employees though, and strangely, Wagner's book feels more empathetic to them, even though Schiffer's book is supposed to be from their perspective. Dorsey was then succeeded as CEO by Parag Agarwal. His time as CEO was tumultuous, as Elon was priming himself to take over Twitter during his entire tenure. The man practically had no time to fix anything, and the time he did have was spent making sure Elon wasn't destroying Twitter's brand.
You're no one if you're not on Twitter.
He was literally needing to babysit Elon's activity on Twitter. And I know what you must be thinking. If Elon wasn't CEO yet and was simply a Twitter user, and Twitter was known for censoring people, why weren't they doing that? Maybe because Twitter Twitter 1.0 wasn't as anti-free speech as Elon screamed about. And thus, the threads of Elon's entire free speech circus begin to unravel. Twitter, as a social media platform, has terms of service. Every social media platform has a terms of service. And if you break those, you no longer get to use the platform, either temporarily or permanently. This isn't against free speech. This is not attacking your First Amendment rights. That is something completely separate. If I let you borrow one of my books and you destroy it or lose it, then I am allowed to no longer let you borrow books. It's that simple. Except the Twitter executives were too scared to suspend Elon, so they never did. It really shouldn't be surprising that Elon effectively lied about how Twitter handled suspending people on their platform. And because of this, the employees that were in charge of the delicate task of determining what is okay to post were met with abuse and death threats. Elon took gasoline to this fire, and instead of trying to put it out when the flames got out of control, he just fanned the flames.
The giant elephant in the room was that he was acting like a fucking idiot, Kimball told Musk's biographer, Walter Isaacson.
The biggest takeaway the authors of both of these books have is that Elon is his own worst enemy. Even before stepping foot into Twitter headquarters as the new CEO, he was causing problems for them. From his horrible and most times inappropriate dad jokes, to creating polls to see how Twitter should be run, to his outward disdain of Twitter employees online. I'm just going to run down the more insane actions he took against those Twitter employees. The layoffs. Companies are allowed to lay off employees. It's why at-will employment is a thing. However, there is a way to do this that doesn't degrade the employees and sets them up to be okay afterward. Elon did not care to do this. The hard truth is, employees need to approach all jobs as if the company will not care, because they just don't. We hope that the humans within the company will, but that's not always a guarantee either. Elon handled every instance of laying off employees in the worst possible way. From cutting off access to employee accounts in the middle of the employees working, to giving employees the heads up that some of them will be receiving a layoff email, and then holding off on sending that email, effectively leaving a dark cloud over their heads until it was finally sent over a weekend. Telling a disabled employee that they didn't do enough work during their time at Twitter and publicly attacking them on the platform.
You're no one if you're not on Twitter.
Speaking of which, attacking any employee who criticizes his actions on his new $44 billion toy megaphone is psychotic behavior. Oh, you didn't know the real reason that Elon bought Twitter? That he actually had his own idea for a social media site similar to what he's done with Twitter 2.0 today, but it was easier to purchase one already set up with a user base, because then Elon would just be screaming into the void, and that wouldn't do. Not for Mr. Look at Me. Prior to Elon taking over Twitter, Dorsey asked him to join the board of directors. In joining, however, he would have to adhere to some basic ethical rules in regards to what he posted on Twitter. Elon hated this and demanded he be given an exception. Twitter ultimately bent the rules for him, and then he straight up rejects them like a high schooler dumped at the prom. The fact that the only issue that he vocalized in joining the board of directors was that his free speech would be compromised should be all the evidence you need that any intent he would have towards Twitter thereafter would be malicious. Because there wasn't a free speech issue prior to Elon. It was just a liberal company, and that's what bothered him and his ilk. He literally started blocking accounts indiscriminately when they would disagree, prove him wrong, or flat out call him stupid. He still does that to this day. The Elon Jet instance was particularly laughable, considering the same shit is happening to Taylor Swift on Twitter right now. Both books confirm this insane behavior, not to mention witnessing it in real time in his every action as Twitter 2.0 CEO. To run a business, particularly a social media site, is a delicate balance between allowing people to say what they want and protecting users. Elon either didn't know, didn't care to know, or knew and just didn't care. This is part of the reason Twitter 2.0 is hemorrhaging money. The firings. Elon is known for asking employees why a problem is persisting in your product and getting an answer he didn't like. He responded with firing the employee who dared open their mouth. Any employees that criticized his decisions would meet a similar fate and would likely get the added bonus of being attacked on Twitter. You weren't even safe if you supposedly left on good terms. Just ask Yoel Roth, former head of trust and safety at Twitter. Elon accused him on the Twitter platform of supporting pedophilia, which was a bold-faced lie.
You're no one if you're not on Twitter.
He and his husband were forced to leave their home for their safety and never returned. Reminder, Roth liked Elon and resigned from Twitter on good terms. Elon runs Twitter 2.0 as if his decisions carry zero consequences for the company and the employees. His only solid policy seems to be rules for thee but not for me. He is the reason that advertisers fled the platform, and instead of taking a beat to reflect on his decisions, he went the other way and continued blocking people, media, and advertisers who disagreed with him and what he was doing. One of the wildest discoveries during this whole experience was learning that Twitter was the original owner of Vine, and now I know who to blame for its demise. Their biggest mistake with Vine was not setting up a way to pay its creators, which is why it ultimately failed. Wagner's book is the only one that touches on this part of Twitter's history. There's even mention in the book that Elon for a time was considering bringing Vine back. A few weeks ago, I would have said that this was an extremely stupid idea. But if our government successfully blocks TikTok, then something will have to fill that power vacuum, though it would probably be only an echo of what TikTok or Vine once was. Plus, I don't think Elon would do a very good job with running it. Wagner's book also adds in this tiny detail of every time Elon would bring his toddler with him to Twitter HQ. This isn't very significant, but his son's name is X, which I find the addition of this little factoid really entertaining. I was not aware of this, but now that I am seriously wondering if Elon knows any other letter of the English alphabet. After reading all the information of both books, my biggest hot take is that Twitter was always a mismanaged company that was doomed to fail. Elon definitely exacerbated the problems that already existed, and more than likely sped up the inevitable by a few years. But we all need to take a collective breath and accept the fact that Elon wasted $44 billion on something that was already dying. And that is all the defending I will do of billionaires in regards to this situation. Because on the other side of that hot take is this: had a more competent, less narcissistic human pariah purchased Twitter, it probably would have thrived. There are a lot more things that both books touch on, with Wagner's book doing better with the details, such as Twitter Blue, bad idea, poorly executed, Elon, the richest man in the world, not paying his rent, attempting to turn Twitter HQ into this weird, creepy, hostel-like living space, and changing the branding of Twitter to X. The dumbest decision made by Elon by far. Other companies would kill for that level of brand recognition, and Elon just threw it away in the trash. For this choice alone, he should never be called a genius again. No one is calling it X. No one. Every article I see talking about something that happens on Twitter's platform, it is listed as formerly known as Twitter.
You're no one if you're not on Twitter.
I don't care who you are, these are not sound business decisions. Despite the differences in approach, both books remarkably come to the same conclusions. One, Elon bought Twitter for his own petty narcissistic reasons. 2, Elon is his own worst enemy. 3, he is running Twitter into the ground with poor business decisions and a toxic work environment. I think Wagner's book works better as a novel in the here and now. Schiffer would have benefited in waiting for the lawsuits to be over in order for her book to have the same level of appeal. That way, she could have had all the information the employees could give and actually create a narrative of events that flowed well. It would have also given those employees a much better credit to their story. On the opposite side of things, I also think Wagner could have made the narrative more personable by actually getting stories directly from employees. With that being said, it's pretty clear that combining these books would have worked to both of their benefit, at least story-wise. I rated Extremely Hardcore by Zoe Schiffer 2.5 stars. While I think it's important that the employees that were wronged get their stories told, this book failed to do it in a complete and cohesive way. I wish Schiffer could have had all the information before trying to advocate for any of the X-tweets. As it is, this makes it hard to feel anything below a surface level, and that shouldn't be the case. There is also the issue of only focusing on the employees' anecdotal stories. This prevents more details of the acquisition being presented that I think could have helped narratively structure Schiffer's book. This is why I rated Battle for the Bird 3.5 stars. Wagner was able to present a clear narrative timeline that even presented new information that I wasn't aware of. His only downfall was taking the humanity out of the story. And that's a big deal because I really didn't feel anything while reading his book. It was just, oh, that's cool information to now know about this situation. Strangely, both books were missing what the other had. To get a more complete story, you could read both books, but I think if you are interested in getting the most information about what occurred, I would recommend reading Wagner's book, Battle for the Bird. The ripple effect from the Twitter acquisition is probably far from being complete, and if or when more information comes out about this, I'll be interested to learn more. If you have read either of these books or are interested in the state of Twitter, please feel free to start a discussion down in the comments below. I'm really curious to know what people think, not just of these books, but of this kind of entire situation that was really a first and a little bit crazy. While the health of Twitter may not be something that many care about, I think any major changes in the tech industry is worth at least knowing about. If you like my videos and would like to support my channel, the best way to do that right now is to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share any of my videos that you particularly like. It really is a huge help, and I greatly appreciate it. Until our next chapter together, merry part and blessed be.